Hi, this is Josh, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the INEOS Grenadier Infotainment Center. And I've had this Grenadier for almost a year, and I never really completely took the time to figure out how to set radio stations and satellite radio stations. And I dug into it a little bit deeper because I just set it to a station and leave it. And a lot of times I'm driving and talking to you, and I don't have my audio on. So I haven't spent a lot of time figuring out how to set it all up. Well, it turns out it's a little complicated because there's buttons and there's this control panel down below, and it's a combination of touching or twisting. And so we're going to walk through it a little bit, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit about how to tame the infotainment center and get some radio stations or satellite radio stations. Because what I learned was that the US owner's manual skips this section. And I found more information about this in the UK version of the owner's manual. And I'm not sure why that oversight took place, but that's the current state of things with the latest owner's manual. So first, let's start by looking at the infotainment center, which is this display here. And basically, you've got your instrument cluster over here, and then this has little soft buttons. And then there's this console down below with a knob in the center, and it's called the CCI, Central Control Interface. It's kind of a tongue twister. And it has 6 buttons, and we're probably all familiar with the favorite button because that's what we use to disable the overspeed warning pretty much every time we get in the car. But the knob in the center actually spins, but it also presses and it tilts from side to side and up and down. So that becomes important when you go to select things on the display here. For example, if I'm on home and I want to choose audio, because we're going to spend time in the audio section, this knob chooses. When I go to the left, it chooses the different inputs. When I go to the right, it chooses the center display. If I go down, it switches the next input. And so it's a little more useful than I really realized, frankly. And so if you have our Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, I don't use it, so I don't remember. You will see that as your first input source. And these little buttons here, these little dots over to the side, show you what inputs you have for your audio system. And you can touch them and it will rotate through them, or you can push over to the right and then literally rotate. And the second one is radio, and the next one is Sirius satellite radio in the United States. And then the next one is the USB input that you have inside of the center console. If you have a USB stick with MP3s on it, that will display here. And then the last one is for Bluetooth connected devices. Now, what you'll find, if you've connected your Apple iPhone or Android to Android Auto, it will not show up as a Bluetooth device in this list. If you connect it to Bluetooth, then you're turning off the Apple CarPlay connection. You can have one or the other, but not both. But that doesn't mean if you have another Bluetooth device that you can't connect it, because you can. You can just add it. You just can't do 2 things with an iPhone or the Android phone. So that's the 5th one. So first of all, we'll go back up to Apple CarPlay. And this is basically the audio. In a different format. It's just a display, and in this display, if you push the button in the center, it's like hitting the play or pause button. If I push it a second time, it pauses the music. If I push it again, it hits the play. Now here is continuous, and over here is shuffle, and the only way you get to those is by pushing the options button, which is up here, these 3 little, they call those a hamburger menu, the little hamburger menu, or you touch the options button in the CCI, and it pops out a menu where you can choose shuffle, repeat, and the device shown is my iPhone. So I can go back, or I can hit option a second time and that slide out menu will go away. But basically this shows the music that I have on my iPhone, and I can play it, I can pause it, and I can shuffle it, and it shows you as it's playing down below. It looks like something you could just push with your finger and skip to a part of the song. You cannot. It will just bump you into the next input. It doesn't actually respond to touch. The only things that respond to touch are the stop start button and the continuous button on off, and that's about it on this display. So let's go on to the next one, which is the radio, and we tilt over to the right and we twist the knob once and we get radio stations. Now when you get the car, a lot of times you can auto scan all stations, and it could be a blessing or a curse. I live in a border city and I get half radio stations that are in a language I don't understand, and I get a lot of them. And so I haven't lived in San Diego for a long time, and back in the days when we listened to the radio, there were a handful of stations. So you can auto seek all the stations, or you can go over, press the options button to clear that menu, and you can switch through all the ones that it has auto sought. And the way you set a station is across the bottom here you see 5 presets, and that's kind of like the old physical button. If you press and hold, it will add it to your favorite, and then all of a sudden it will become that default station for that button. So you can have a total of 5 radio buttons across the bottom, and you can tilt down, tilt up. You're scrolling through the stations. See, this is where it gets fiddly to me, because if you click one too many times, it takes you into a different input. Scrolling the wheel switches the stations. Pulling down once takes me to my radio buttons. One more time takes me to frequency, and the frequency is where you get the actual old school slider, like if you're trying to dial in a specific frequency, and that might just be something that you'll want to do when you're setting up stations. Otherwise it's more for show, in my opinion, and it's not something you're going to use much. So you click down and it's just like pressing OK. And so once you've set 5 radio stations, you can also touch the options button, and let's see, where did it go? FM, source. You have the choice of AM and FM in the US. They have DAB in the European area and different countries, but in the US we have AM and FM. So that's where you can choose your source. Not so user-friendly in my opinion, but I'm just trying to point out where some of these things can be found, because sometimes AM radios work during emergencies and things like that. They provide useful information. So this is the audio input for the radio. Once you learn how it works, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's just, I find a lot of times that I was getting stations just popping up on my display and playing, and I found it really annoying. So I went in and set some favorites, and at least I could leave it on a station that I wanted if it were ever to just pop into the FM radio. So again, we'll lean over to the right with the control knob. We'll dial down, and the next one is our Sirius satellite radio here in the US. Now, this one's another one that puzzled me. The stations run from 1 to 455 with a lot of gaps in between. But finding a station is not an easy prospect, because if you're looking at all channels, it's just the wheel of fortune here, trying to find the station that you're looking for, and they're in numbered order. But a lot of times Sirius moves their channels around, and all of a sudden channel 131 becomes channel 80, and they advertise it for a brief while, but then they move. So it's not a consistent thing with a few exceptions. So you go in here and you first have to find the stations that you want to save. And so we'll take football, I guess. And you can then hit the options button, favorite channels. No. See, this is all channels. If I hold on that, is it going to do anything? No. But it's going to tune it to that channel. I have the volume turned down because the audio caused copyright problems. So you have to tune to that channel, then press the options button, and it's still not. Let me see if it came up as a favorite. No, it's still not come up as a favorite. See, this is the frustrating part. All channels. Let's add CNN. So if I want to add that, first I play it. And sometimes you push down on the center knob and it starts the station, sometimes it doesn't. It's very laggy in its response. So I want to save that as a favorite. That, now that it's playing, I see add to favorites. So I can add it as a favorite. A little star shows up in the icon, and that's how you know it's in your favorites list. So if I go to options, favorite channels, it will show me CNN, CNN International, and Howard Stern. So you can build your list this way, but it takes a little doing. You kind of touch and poke and add and so forth, and eventually you'll get your list built. All channels, because you go back to all channels, you scroll to one that you want to add. Here, we'll add the Today Show. You have to be playing it, so it has to be playing. And then we should be able to go to options, add to favorites. So that's sort of the routine that you go through. And then you can just display your favorite channels. And when you get in the car and you go over to here, and the center one is normally the satellite radio, you'll only see those favorite channels. And then you should just be able to touch them and it play the station. Because I was living with the whole list for the longest time, not realizing that there's this options button down here on the central control interface, and just pushing that slides out the menu, and you can choose between all channels or favorite channels. So you use all channels to set it up, then you go to favorite channels to just see what you want to see. And so if we continue on, and again, it's got a play pause. You can pause it and it will queue up something for a period of time. If you stay in the car, I think it will continue, and you hit play again, like if you took a phone call, it should continue on. If you leave the car and come back, it'll probably clear it out. So it's not like a TiVo or a DVR where it, remembers where you left off. Going back to the choices, the next one is USB input. Now you can have a USB-A or a USB-C, and I currently have a little LED light down in this console so I can see in here in USB-A, and USB-C is the smaller one. I have a little USB stick that's got some MP3s on it. So that's the one I have chosen, and I don't have artists and albums and artwork on here, so it's just going to show me basic stuff. I have a folder, and it does have a list of all the songs, but I don't know that that means it's necessarily going to go and play it. Actually, it is. Okay, so you can actually find things and play them, and then again, it's got the continuous, the shuffle, and the play pause button, which you push once and you notice that little highlight comes on. And this one, it looks like you can scrub through the song, because you see it kind of turns this into a glow. And so you can scrub where we couldn't do that with the Apple CarPlay. So that's interesting. So if you wanted to skip to something on your USB MP3s, you could skip around. Interesting. And then play pause is just pushing the button. See, I hit too much. I hit on the tilt. Play pause. And then if we go back over and go one more, we're at the Bluetooth input. And again, as I said, if you've got Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, then that's connected on the top input, and it's not showing on the Bluetooth, even though those phones have Bluetooth in them. It's using that to connect the Apple CarPlay. So you can have an additional Bluetooth device and pair it to your car, and then you would have music to choose from here. So I mean, that's kind of the sum of it. It's really, if you spend, get in your car, don't turn it on, sit in your driveway and play with this, as opposed to try to do it when you're driving. I just took a trip to Palm Springs last week, and I didn't have my station set up, and it's like, dialing through 455 satellite stations to find something, and I wanted 100, I wanted 455, and I just didn't have it set up. And then when I went to go look at how I could set it up, it really wasn't documented in the manual in the US. So I thought I'd share what I learned and just remind you that there are buttons down here for audio. Audio will take you to this audio menu. There's an options button down here that slides out the options for the screen that you're in. And then there's a back button. So if I hit options and I hit back, it's the same as pressing the options button twice. But these are more control buttons. The manual talks about the favorite button being for your favorite radio station, but we all know that we use that button for canceling our overspeed warning. And so that's how it's used by most Grenadier drivers at this point. And so that's pretty much it. I just thought I'd spend a little time going through this, and hopefully you learned a little something. You probably, maybe everybody knows this and I just didn't figure it out. But it seemed a little complicated, and it's a combination of touching up here, because you can touch these. But when you're driving on the freeway, they're really small and hard to reach. So you can go down here to the knob, tilt over. First we get out of there, tilt over, and then just dial down to the next input. And that's a way you can do it while you're driving. And so there are multiple ways to get to a place on this infotainment system. It just takes a little figuring out. And I don't think it's particularly intuitive, but it's what we have to work with. So anyway, I hope that taught you something, and leave a comment if you already figured this out and I'm a dum-dum, because I just wasn't getting it. And so I had to sit down and actually learn it so that I could figure out what to do, because I didn't know that you could set radio stations by, again, pressing and holding, and then avoid the randomness that sometimes you get with the radio, or having to dial through everything. But the interface isn't my favorite, but it's livable. And so anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.